everyone, I'm Domingos and I'm also known DMA and appreciate when I'm called DMA. Today's topic is on quadratic function, also known as second order polynomial function. Why second order? Because the highest degree of this function is 2. That's why it's called quadratic function. So let's learn together and have fun. Okay, that's the form, the characteristic of a quadratic function. Y equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. First, we have to start by stating that this will only be quadratic function if a is different than 0. What is a? What is b and c? A, b, and c, they are numbers. They are constant. They are real numbers. So we're using alphabet. We're using a, b, and c to represent numbers because they usually are used as numbers. So 5, 3, whatever you feel comfortable in using. What is x then? If a, b, and c are constant, are numbers, what is x? X is said to be independent variable. X is independent variable. Independent variable means that x receive arbitrary numbers. So you can say for x equal to 1, for example, for x equal to 3, what do you have? So x is independent because x does not depend on any variable. Of course, x depends on you because you're the one that will have to change the value of x. So in terms of letters, in terms of numbers, x does not depend on anyone. That's why it said x is independent variable. Another term that you can use to describe a, b, and c is like coefficient. A, b, they are coefficient because they are number multiplying a variable. If a number is multiplying a variable, you can call that number to be coefficient. So what is y then? If a, b, c are constant, are numbers, x is independent variable, what is y? Y is dependent variable. Y is dependent variable. Why y is dependent variable? Y is dependent variable because y depends on the value of x. So for each value of x we may have value for y. So y is strictly depending on x's value. So that's why we can also use y to be equal to f of x. This approach or this notation just simply tells us that y is a function in which respects to x. In other words, y is a function that is written in which respects to x. So x is the independent variable while y is the dependent variable. So this is the characteristic of a quadratic function. But this is a complete form. What happens if one of these constants are 0? Because we said that a, b, and c are constant. First of all, if a is 0, this is no longer a quadratic function. This will become a first degree polynomial function. Why first degree? Because this term will be 0. We will only be left with bx plus c. That's a first degree function because the highest degree of the variable will be 1. So in order to avoid that, that's why we say a has to always be different than 0. But bc can then be 0 because we only stated the condition for a. Now that's the question. If we only stated the condition for a, that means b and c, they could be 0 because they are constant. But here we said a is also constant, but a can't be 0. But b and c, they can be 0. So what happens if b and c are 0? That's the good question. That means that we can call it incomplete quadratic function. So let's write that. Incomplete quadratic function. When is the quadratic function incomplete? First, a quadratic function is incomplete if b is 0. Why? Because if b is 0, what we will have? We will have y equal to ax squared plus c. This is still a quadratic function because there is x squared, so it's still a quadratic function, but it's incomplete because b is 0. One term is missing. So we can say 2. If c is 0, here of course c is not 0. That's why I wrote c there, just to say that c is not 0. But if c is 0 and b is different than 0, then that means we will have ax squared plus bx. This is also incomplete quadratic equation function, Now, the third one, let's say b and c, they are both 0. If b and c, they are both 0, y will be only ax squared. So, we have a complete quadratic function and we have incomplete quadratic function. They are incomplete if one of the terms is missing. But missing, in other words, we're saying that term is 0. So b 0, c 0, or if they're both 0. A cannot be 0, that's why I didn't wrote the fourth condition saying that if a is 0. We know already if a is 0, that is no longer a quadratic function. It's going to be first degree polynomial function. So those are the incomplete function. Now, we have several points that we can discuss on quadratic function. And the first one is the roots of a quadratic function. So let's see how we will solve to determine the roots of a quadratic function. However, we will start by solving the incomplete quadratic function first, applying the factorization method, which is transforming sum into product and then find the value of the variable that we are required to solve. So if you enjoy, leave your like, your comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share with your friends.